Hello, I am Minecraft Phenom 08, and this is episode 44 of my Billions and Billions challenge. In today's episode, I will be building a molten salt fission reactor from the mod NuclearCraft, so let's get started. So the first thing that I should mention is that I have built a test reactor over in the corner over there, and that was just for me to kind of get the basics down of how to design a reactor and exactly how to do everything that I will need to do in today's episode. And then this system that I've set up right here is a pretty simple parallel system to actually make some of the different coolants that I will need. So I have the cryothium coolant here, I have lapis coolant, and I have tin coolant, as well as the redstone coolant. I won't be using the redstone coolant today, but the other three I will be using. So how I did that is I took the eutectic and aka alloy that I was getting from the system that I set up in the last episode, and I simply am mixing that with some of the different components that I can make coolant with. So right here I had cryothium dust, for example. So let's actually look up some of the recipes real fast. So and actually it's just easier if I do eutectic, if I can spell it right. So anyways, if I right click here, how you do this is for the redstone, for example, we just need destabilized redstone, so I used a melter for that. For all of this stuff you need the melter. So and for the, say, cryothium, sorry, that was the wrong cryothium. You just need gelid cryothium, and for gelid cryothium you just send cryothium dust into a melter. But anyways, so there are fluid types of all of the coolers that there are solid forms of. So if we take a look at the solid form of the coolers, we can see that they have rules for the placement inside of the reactor, and the fluid cooler, or the fluids, actually have the same exact rules as the solid coolers, and we'll see that later when I actually get to designing the reactor itself. But for right now, what I'm going to focus on is I need to create a system to actually get the coolants from these black hole tanks to the reactor that I'm going to be building. So the reactor that I'm going to be building is going to be in a diamond building right here, and this building actually does not have a roof, and this over here is the solid coolant form of the design that I'm going to be using inside of the reactor. And I wanted you to see the exact design. So basically what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to take this design and just spread it across the reactor horizontally, and the design will be the same clear across the entire reactor, and we'll see that just a little bit later. But anyways, the reactor is going to be in this building. So what I need to do is I need to get some conduit here, and I need to get the coolant over to that area. So what I have set up is the different colors for the outputs. There's a bunch of zombies somewhere. Are kind of pertain to the coolant that I'm going to be using. For example, the cryothium is set to the light blue, the lapis is set to blue, and the tin mixture is set to white. So that's going to be something that I need to remember. So let's go ahead and start setting up this ender fluid conduit here. And what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be pulling out of the top, and then eventually I will set up a system that will return the cool coolant into these black hole tanks. I won't actually be able to set that up today because that's a lot of extra work as well, and that will be in a different episode. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm actually going to disconnect this right here. I'm not actually going to fill up the line underneath these black hole tanks. I'm just going to run this in this direction to my gold building over there. So let's go ahead and do that real fast. And whoops. I'm not even going to worry about that right now. So let's run this over, and I need to run it up. So I think what I'm going to be doing is let's just go ahead and have a little more destruction here and just run up right here. And that should be good, and then we can run it over, and then we'll need to run it up again, but we'll get there in a second. So what I'm going to do is let's go ahead and run this conduit here. Okay, he's really annoying me, so let's get rid of him. Cool. So we're going to run this up, and then we're going to run this conduit over, and then eventually up into the reactor again. But I'm not going to worry about that right now. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to go ahead and neaten this up a little bit. I'm going to cover up this conduit with some facades. Once I have that done, I will be right back. So I finished neatening up my conduits, so let's actually get started in building the actual reactor itself. So what we need for that are the molten salt reactor frames and molten salt reactor walls, and I am also going to be using some molten salt reactor glass, although that is not necessary. So first off, let's start off by placing the molten salt reactor frame. And how I'm going to do this is, let's start here. And this goes around the edge of the reactor. And so let's get on with placing that. And let's see here. I need to go one more, I think. Do I have that right? Yeah, one more. So, or not one more anymore. I think I have it all. Because if I remember right, I will be 3 away from this wall here. So let's go ahead and finish that up. And then I do want to go ahead and come over here. That way I make sure to get the height correct on this reactor, because I do have it. I have this set up exactly how high I want the reactor. So let's go ahead and do this. Come on. Might actually work better if I'm a little bit to the side there. And hopefully I have enough of these blocks. I think I do. It's gonna be really close, actually. If I don't, I can go get more. Maybe it would have been beneficial to turn down my flight speed a little bit. Oh well. Man, this is gonna be close. I actually think I might be a few blocks short, and that would be a shame. It kind of looks like I'm going to be about like 3 or 4 blocks short. Yeah, so let me run back to my main base. I should be able to make those very quickly. So, nope, molten salt. Not moderator housing, not beams, frames. So 10 will be more than enough. And there we go. So now I'm a little bit worried that I won't have enough of the reactor walls and glass. I probably don't have enough reactor walls, to be honest. So let's just go ahead and tell this thing to make a bunch of these. I should have all of the stuff that I need to make more of them, so that's not a big problem or anything. Actually, don't need much moderator housing. Let's go back to the NuclearCraft base and continue with this. Sorry about that. I thought I had enough, but apparently not so much. So we finish off the frame, and that is a valid frame. So what I want to do now is I'm going to lay down the floor and probably the ceiling as well. Okay, torch. That torch really did not want to die. So we need the reactor wall now. And I'm going to be laying this on the bottom and the top. So let's fly up here. And I have a wand or a couple wands to make this a little bit quicker here. And this wand is probably going to break. Do I actually have enough? Yeah, I do. I definitely do. Okay, there it goes. Let's make sure to set this to the right setting, and then we can continue here. So this will be the floor of the reactor, and I'm actually... Yeah, let's go ahead and do the front and the back. So what I'm going to do with the front and the front and the back is use this molten salt reactor glass. That way you can see inside the reactor. But on the sides here, the sides are going to be mostly made up of blocks that can accept and output fluid. I do want to go ahead and put down the controller, and the controller is going to go down here in this corner. And let's start with the glass now on the front and back here. There we go, and then let's do the back. Let's get out the wand one more time, and now I need to set this to be up and down. Okay, so I'm very purposefully leaving the sides open because I'm going to need to do quite a bit of stuff once I start laying down some of the blocks. So to get the fluids and the fuel into the reactor, I'm going to need another type of block. And let me find them because I'm actually can't remember what they're called right at this moment for whatever reason. they're in here somewhere. So we need the, we need the Molten Salt Reactor Fence. And so what this does is this is used to move fuel and coolant in and out of the reactor. We'll push to and accept from, accepting push. Okay, that's kind of confusing. Vessels and heaters. So basically, the fission reactor will use coolant heaters inside and fission vessels. The fission vessels hold the fuels that you put into the reactor, and then the molten salt coolant heaters actually hold the different coolants that we will be pumping into the reactor. Now, the cool thing about the molten salt reactors is you can use different types of fuel in an individual reactor. So I could use, if I had different types of molten salt fuels, I could use any combination of fuels to get the right heat level in my reactor. For today, I just have the one type of fuel, which is the LEU. I think it's 230, is it 235? I think it's 235. So we're going to need a lot of these, and I'm going to need more than that, actually. I need at least 2 stacks, or at least more than 1 stack, I should say. So actually in the corners there, I can go ahead and put just the regular housing, and I'm going to go ahead and do that before I forget. It's the reactor wall. And so I'm going to do that both on the front and the back here, just because I don't actually have anything in the corners of this design, so I don't need any IO over here. This reactor glass actually looks very, very clear. I like that. So let's get rid of this salt reactor wall, and let's get down to placing these vents. And so basically this entire face will be full of these vents. So that is cool. So let's try to interact with that apparently. And that was the controller there. Actually, you know what? The wand might be able to do this. I'm not sure if it would. It can, it looks like. So cool. So let's actually use the wand. I wasn't sure if it would be able to do this or not. Cool. So each one of these will need to be set up to accept certain fluids. So let's go ahead and grab some conduit here, and I'm going to need a lot of this stuff. And let's get rid of these for right now. And I need to hook up to each individual one of these. And I actually need to grab my Conduit Probe because that's going to be super, super useful here in just a second. So if you'll remember back earlier on in the episode, all of the different types of coolants that I have been producing have their own color. And so that's going to be pretty useful once I get to setting up all of this stuff up. And I guess you probably don't know exactly what I'm doing just yet, but you will a little bit later. This will make sense. So basically, each one of these molten salt reactor vents is going to provide fluid for an entire line of the either the coolants or of the fuel, and I forget the actual block names here. The molten salts. Shoot, where'd it go? Fission vessel. We'll need to have fuel pumped into them. So like when I have an entire line of the fission vessels, I need to pump in the fuel. There's the Conduit Probe. And for all of the coolants, I need certain coolant pumped into each different line of the coolant heaters here. So let's grab this Conduit Probe and let's start setting some of this stuff up. So there's going to be a few different colors I'm going to be using. So there's going to be blue, white, light blue for the cryothium, and then green for the actual fission fuel. So let's start setting things up. So the first thing I'm going to do is the blue, and that is going to be the lapis blocks. So let's go ahead and grab this. And so I just need to copy this, and then I need to copy this clear around the reactor here. And let me double check that I got that right. So yeah. So basically, when I'm done with this, this pattern of the different colors will be identical to the pattern over here. Oh, that's incorrect. That was my bad. Okay, so let's do white next, and that would be the tin coolant. So in on white, and let's go ahead and copy this, and then we need to paste this, and this just goes along the edge in between any of the lapis. And that is because the rule for the tin coolers is that it needs to be between two active lapis coolers that are in the same I don't know how it's worded. Plane. I don't think plane is the right word. Let's actually look up the actual verbiage here. Along the same axis. So basically straight line. So there needs to be two lapis coolers on in a straight line on either side of a valid tin cooler. So the next thing that we're going to do is the actual fuel, and that's green. So that's going to be in on green, and that's going to be right here. So let's go ahead and copy this, and this is going to be kind of every other block. And actually, I probably should have done the cryothium next, because I'm probably going to get confused a little bit, because I'm actually not really changing any of the colors. I'm just getting rid of the extraction points. So, sorry, I'm trying to concentrate here, and it's not. I'm moving too fast. That is kind of a problem. Okay, so there we go. That should be all of them, and then I have 24 more, and that needs to be the cryothium, so that needs to be light blue. So insert on light blue, and okay, so cool. I haven't actually hooked up any of these conduits to the actual conduit over here, so nothing's being pumped in, which is good, because I would have got some of the wrong coolants in here as I toggled through the different colors. For example, when I did that, I might get some of the wrong fluid in some of the coolers, but since it's not actually hooked up, then that did not happen. So basically, the cryothium should go anywhere between the fuel. Okay, let's go down. Go down. Okay, a few, more than a few, I guess, but we're getting closer. So that is fuel. Oh, there you go. And then I think 3 more. Okay, let's look down and see if everything looks good. Everything that I can see looks fine. So now what I want to do is I want to hook up this conduit to this conduit over here. And then we should actually start pumping things into the inventories. So these molten salt reactor vents actually have inventories of their own, and I'm not sure how many buckets of stuff that they can hold, but it is some. So let's go ahead and hook this up. So let's actually punch a hole in the floor here and then do that. So we should start seeing stuff float into here, and their speed is actually probably crippled a little bit because I don't have any sort of upgrades on the other end to actually speed things up, but that's okay. So now what we need to grab is the coolant heaters. So let's grab those, and the fission vessels as well. So let's just keep grabbing things. And let's get started with actually placing things in the reactor. So what we need to do is anywhere where we have the fuel, we need to place down the molten salt fission vessels. And then anywhere where we have the coolants, we need to place down the coolant heaters. So let's start off with the coolant heaters because we need many more of them than the molten salt reactor, or yeah. Now I'm confusing myself. They're all molten salt reactor vents, duh. So basically, let's start placing things down. But I want to keep one of my hands open because we actually need to configure the sides of these blocks. So when I place a molten salt coolant heater down, or a molten salt fission vessel, they have these sides, and they are sided. And what we will need to do is we will need to change some of the faces. So we can do this in two different manners. We can just simply right click to change the face we're looking at, or we can shift right click and change the opposite face. So what we're going to need to do is we're actually going to need to change all of the opposite faces to be the default setting, and all of the faces toward us toward the coolant spread, and then for the actual fission vessels we need to have them say fuel spread. And I know you can't really see that, but that is what the green is. So basically coolant spread, fuel spread, and that's how we're going to set these up. So let's start off by placing down some of the coolant heaters. And actually let's go ahead and do this all the way around, and then we can configure all of their sides. So these also have inventories, and actually I'm going to get rid of that. These all have inventories as well, and I think it's something like 2.5 buckets. So I know that this is fuel, so every other one's going to be fuel in a pattern like this. That is incorrect. Okay, so we're almost there. Okay, so what we need to do is change the far side to be default, and then the near side to be coolant spread. And I need to do this for all of them. And while I'm at it, I might as well place down the fission vessels as well. So obviously this is going to take a while. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and do all of the configuring of these faces off camera, because this is going to take a really long time to do. And once I have all of the faces properly configured, I will be right back. So I should have all of these blocks properly configured, and as we can see up at the top of the screen, they do have fluids in their tanks, and we can kind of see what different fluids we have in the tanks by the colors. For example, I can see that this has lapis, I can see that this has tin, I can see that this has cryothium, and I can see that the molten salt fission vessels all have the uranium fuel, which is fantastic. So the next step in the process is actually going to be carrying this design all the way across the room. So what we need to do is we need to take the coolant heaters, and I'm just going to start with the coolant heaters, and I'm going to work my way across. What I can do is if we go ahead and shift click, it will actually copy the settings of the block that you clicked on to the new block that you place. So as we can see, the near side is this coolant spread, and the far side is default, which means it can accept or it can send liquid through, or it can allow liquid to go through it. So as we can see, this now has liquid in its tank as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to carry this clear across the reactor, and it's going to take quite a while to place down all of these blocks. So I'm going to go ahead and do this off camera as well, and once I have everything to the edge of the reactor, which would be all of the blocks in this block space with the end of this reactor still open, I will be right back. So finally I have all of the fission vessels and the coolant heaters placed down. So there's one more thing I need to do, and that is to change the end pieces here so that they are set to be the hot fluid out, or the hot coolant out in the case of the molten salt coolant heaters. And then I need to have these the fission vessels to be depleted out. And so this is actually going to take a while to do as well. So I'm going to go ahead and do this off camera as well. And once I have all of these configured to be the red or the purple, I will be right back. So I finally finished configuring all of the ends of these vessels here. So now what I need to do is I need to cap off the end of the reactor with these molten salt reactor vents. So let's go ahead and do that. And this should, I don't know why I didn't grab my wand, because I learned my lesson last time. So let's grab the wand and let's actually use that this time. That'll make things a lot quicker. So let's just raise this all the way up here, and then it should be able to wand this all the way across. So hopefully now this is a completed structure. I'm not sure if it is or not. It is, so cool. So it looks like I am creating a lot of negative I'm creating a negative amount of heat, which is obviously good. If I was creating a positive amount of heat, I would have to have some sort of mechanism to turn off and then turn back on the reactor automatically, although that's pretty easy to do, to be honest, with the redstone controls provided by the mod. But we are creating a lot of negative heat here, and so that's good. So the next thing that I need to do is I need to set up somewhere for these fluids to go. And actually what I'm going to go ahead and do is let's get rid of all this stuff over here because I don't need it anymore. It was just kind of for display purposes only. Just so you could kind of see what I was doing by my placing of the blocks in the interior of the reactor. So everything's ready to go. Everything should have fluid, theoretically anyways. Yes, these numbers look pretty solid. So, for example, if some of the fission vessels didn't have any fuel in them, it might not have the proper numbers just yet. So what I'm going to need to do is I'm going to need to pull all of this stuff out of the reactor, and they will be depleted liquids when they come out. So I'm going to do that with more of this ender fluid conduit. For right now, I'm not actually going to have anything to do with these fluids because in the future I need to build some additional infrastructure to actually be able to use this reactor to create power, because right now it's just going to be creating hot coolant. But what I can do is I can set up a storage mechanism for that hot coolant and for the depleted fuel, and I can turn on the reactor to make sure it's going to function correctly, and then I can go ahead and shut it down until I get that additional infrastructure ready to go. And obviously I'm going to be spending the next few episodes building all of that stuff as well. So in case you haven't noticed, building a molten salt fission reactor is very complicated. There's a lot that goes into it, a lot to get actual energy out of these things. But let's go ahead and set up all of this now. So what I need to do is, this is lapis because of the placement. I know that this is going to be lapis, so we're going to extract on the blue. We're going to extract always on. And I need to go ahead and copy this and then go ahead and start pasting around. And so I know where all my lapis coolers are. And let's go ahead and, okay, we have a few more. Did I get that one? I did not. And then one more here. And then we have 10, which is white. So let's go ahead and turn that off, and white, and we need that to be always on as well. Let's copy that, and then let's start pasting the 10. And this is just basically anywhere where I have the 10 coolant, I need to pull that out on the white channel. Okay, so next we have the, let's go ahead and do the cryothium next. And that would be, I believe, right here. So we're going to do out on the light blue channel. We're using the same colors as we did for the hot coolants. What I need to do is I need to make sure not to cross these lines, though, because then I would have hot coolant and the cool coolant trying to use the same colors, and that would cause issues. So let's copy that, and let's start pasting that. And this is where things get a little bit complicated, and I could easily screw this up. So far, I think I'm doing all right. Basically, it's just kind of a checkerboard pattern on the interior of this. Okay, did I get that one? I did not. Okay, that should be good. So the next thing is, or the last thing is the actual fuel itself, which would be green. So we need to extract on the green channel, and I do need to make sure that that's always on. Let me double check that I have all of these as always on. Cool. So now let's go ahead and start copying here. Did I not copy that? Not sure if I did. Anyways, let's get going. So we're almost done actually pasting all of these, and then we can set up some black hole tanks, not units, for this liquid to go in for right now. In the future, I will need to have a liquid fuel reprocessing system, as well as infrastructure to cool down the coolant, and then eventually make energy out of that. And that's going to require, I would say, at least 3 more episodes, which is kind of crazy. There's a lot of work that goes into these things. So yeah, I think I have everything set up now as far as the coolant goes. So let's go ahead and set up the black hole tanks. Let's go ahead and do something like here, 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 and here. And let's just go ahead and set it up from the side. So this will be, let's go ahead and have this one be green. This one can be blue. Let's have this one be light blue. And actually, I might have gone the wrong way for that. Light blue, and then this one needs to be white. Cool. Now we can go ahead and just hook all of this up. So what I should be able to do now is turn on the reactor, and what should happen is we will see some fluids coming over to here. For the white, the light blue, and the blue, we will see some hot eutectic fluids, and then for the green, we will see the depleted fuel. So that's all theoretical at this point. I want to make sure that this is going to work before I actually get prepared for the next episode. So let's grab the lever. And once again, we can turn this on with redstone control. I'm going to put the lever, say, right here. And this does say negative amount of heat, so let's turn this thing on. And so this should be producing coolant. As we see, yeah, producing a lot of coolant, hot coolant. So yeah. Obviously, this reactor is rather large. I watched the creator of the NuclearCraft mod has some tutorials that I definitely suggest that you watch, because I don't do a super great job of explaining exactly what I'm doing all of the time with this reactor. It's kind of complicated. But anyways, it looks like everything is working. I'm getting the hot eutectic tin mixture over here, the cryothium mixture here, the lapis mixture here, and the molten salts depleted fuel over here. Now the thing is, I don't have a lot of the coolants, so I definitely need to make sure not to leave this reactor on. In fact, I might not have hardly anything left over. So actually I do have quite a bit left over, so that's kind of nice to see. And it does look like I need to speed these up because they're still pulling fluid out. So I actually think I do have the things to do that. So let's grab extract speed upgrades. Yes, I do. And let's add those before I forget, because that would be a problem if some of the coolers started running out of their coolants. So theoretically that should speed this up, but doesn't seem to be working. Maybe it is. Yeah, it definitely is. It definitely sped it up quite a bit. So I don't actually need anything here. Actually, you know what? I do want to toggle this thing on one more time and look at some stuff over here. So let's see. These tanks are not filling with fluids, so it looks like I am pulling fluid out of these fast enough. I'm probably just not getting it. I actually am wondering if the fluid flow rate through the reactor, if it's high enough. Because if it's not, that might be a problem. My reactor might actually be longer than it should be, which means I might have to work in a system to actually toggle this thing on and off to make sure that the coolers don't run out of coolant. Because I'm not sure at what rate the coolant flows through each other to get to the next cooler. So at some point I need to do an extended test, but I don't think I'm going to go ahead and do that right now. Yeah, we're getting quite a bit of hot coolant. Yeah, so that's pretty cool. I think I'm going to go ahead and wrap up today's episode. So in today's episode, I built this molten salt reactor from the mod NuclearCraft fission reactor, that is. And it's rather big. It's going to produce a lot of the hot coolant. I do need to do additional testing between episodes to make sure that this thing is going to be safe to leave on for a long period of time. There's a chance that I will have to reduce the size of it because it might be a little bit too long. And that would be a shame if I had to do that. But if I have to do it to keep it safe, I have to do it. So whatever. So hopefully you enjoyed today's episode. I know I didn't do a super great job at describing everything all of the time, but this is rather complex. I definitely once again suggest checking out the tutorials if you are interested in building these fission reactors. I believe they will be very, very powerful. There's a lot to it. Very complicated. And yeah. Anyways, if you enjoyed today's episode, feel free to drop a like down below. And if you like watching automation type stuff in modern Minecraft, such as this massive molten salt fission reactor setup that I'm going to be building or have started to build and will be continuing to build in the future, definitely consider subscribing to my channel if you haven't already. Anyways, signing off, I am Minecraft Phenom 08, and I will see you next time.